Councilmember, that was a nice introduction. I will confess to having in my desk drawer at the City Council chamber a pile of bent paper clips. A large pile of bent paper clips. Glad to be on here. Actually, I could echo everything that Councilmember Martin said about all of the national and international accolades coming into the city of Houston, and say, okay, now we can stop, we can celebrate. The problem is that cities never stop. Circumstances are constantly changing. But I have to say, it is great to be in Houston. This whole region has prospered in a way that really no other part of the United States has. And there is more potential here in Houston than really any other part of the United States. All those lists of superlatives that Houston pops up on, and there are really pages and pages of them. Most of them have to do with one thing, and that's the strength of our economy. And so when you get on a list that says best place for young professionals, best place to start a new business, et cetera, it's about one thing, as I said, it's the economy. It's the opportunity for jobs. The reason that our economy is stronger than the rest of the United States, first of all, is the strength of the underlying business sectors that we have. And we are still the oil and gas capital of the world, moving into being the energy capital of the world. We are America's largest exporting port. We have the largest medical complex anywhere in the world. But right after the big three, we're one of the foremost manufacturing cities in America, and that is largely unnoticed. We also, of course, have with NASA and our aerospace component, that's our fifth major sector. My understanding is that we have more engineers per capita in Houston between oil and gas, our aerospace and technology sector out here, and the biomedical side, more engineers per capita than any place else on earth. That is an amazing resource. Now the challenges are clear, and that is we're in competition with every other city around the globe, not just in the United States, but around the globe. The fact that we are growing so rapidly means that we have to be aware of air quality issues, water quality issues, transportation issues. You can only pack so many people into the Galleria area at one time, or just kind of implode if you overdo it. But there are also a few long-term challenges that we're going to have to address. One is making sure that the Port of Houston remains that #1 exporting port in the United States by making sure that we continue to invest in dredging activities at the port so that it can accommodate the ships that will be coming to us when, as I know most of you in the room know, the new channel of the Panama Canal opens next year. What I like to tell people is to imagine a map of the United States and think about big cities in the United States, and people immediately imagine the map and they look at the New York area, they think about LA on the west. Houston is right smack in the middle of the Gulf Coast. We are the gateway to the heartland of the United States. We are already a premier port. We have to make sure that we remain the destination port for the center of the United States. And that means that as a community, as a region, we not only have to invest in the ship channel itself to make sure we can accommodate ships, but we have to work together with the smaller ports in this region. And frankly, I would love to see a regional confederation of ports that faces the world together and says, come on in, we're ready to do business. Another challenge, though, is related to the port. If you see the City of Houston's seal on anything, and know the council member and former council member Sullivan, who's here, know the city seal. We have a train engine in the middle of the city seal. And surprisingly, there are a lot of folks who grew up here who don't understand why front and center on the city seal you have a railroad engine. And that's because Houston was here and has grown because we were where the railroads met the city. We still have train tracks throughout Houston carrying cargo, again, up through the heartland of the United States, but also into Mexico. The Port of Houston is the largest port for the country of Mexico. We do more business for Mexico than all the Mexican ports combined. That cargo has to get there somehow. And going forward, we grow our port, we grow business, we grow our economy. We have to make sure that we move goods by rail and by car, or by truck, but move those goods more swiftly, more efficiently. And that means that we as a region are going to have to begin to invest more in grade separations, making sure that the cargo can continue to move and the cars can continue to move. Finally, I'll point out what I consider the biggest long-term challenge in Houston. Again, with all of the booming economy, with great things happening, and that is we are attracting the best and the brightest from all over the world. In the city of Houston proper, 20% of Houstonians are foreign-born. The last census actually said that we were officially the most diverse city in the United States. But with 20% foreign-born, and when I say foreign-born, you can spend all day in the city of Houston and speak nothing but Vietnamese, Chinese, or Korean. We are attracting a great number of highly skilled professionals from around the world and from across America. We have to make sure that we can grow our own. And the most significant challenge I see for this region in the near term is the quality of the school systems that we have, and there are many, and the outcome for the majority of students going through those school systems. We have some great schools and great school systems. We have some less good schools. And in all of those, we have to be aware that we have lower income, lower achieving students who are going to remain here in this region. And in a region of plenty and abundance, we have to make sure that they have access to the opportunities. But now we go back to the positive things that are going on in Houston, because I believe that working together, we can solve the challenges, and let's celebrate a little of the good things that are happening. That jobs number that everybody talks about, we have put more than 250,000 jobs into this area over the last couple of years. We are officially out of the recession. We came out some time ago. We put more jobs in the community than we lost during the recession. There have been, in the city of Houston permitting office, 74,000 single-family home permits issued over the last year. We are growing like crazy. We are doing our best to provide more transportation options for those in the region. And in fact, I appreciate the council member voting on an item today that will actually not only help Memorial Park, but a piece that we didn't talk about very much will allow the Galleria area, uptown, to experiment with a bus rapid transit proposal along Posto, which I believe will be wildly successful, but will help us put one more tool in our toolkit for transit in this region to go along with our bus system, our light rail system, the commuter rail system that we continue to strive for, and our road system. Bus rapid transit is a fixed route bus system that kind of looks like a light rail car, but it's not on a track. It's on wheels, and the beauty of a bus rapid transit system, which looks like a rail car, is that it is, you don't have to put the track down to get it there, and it can be very, very flexible for the city. I want to skip over to the city's budget, and then I want to quickly get to where we can have a conversation. I really do like to have more of a give and take rather than make a speech, although I have a whole series of hour-long speeches I can deliver on everything from the city pension the city pension. We're going to talk about that in a minute. City pension to the life cycle of ball moss, which is a speech I wrote when I was a council member and someone asked me what ball moss was and did it kill trees, and I had to go out and discover whether it did or not. City budget was presented yesterday. The overall budget is $4.9 billion. We have almost $5 billion budget. $2.2 billion of that is actually the tax-supported budget of the city of Houston. It is what keeps the city running. The other part of the budget, the largest sector, is our airport system, which is, I'm proud to say, healthy and growing. Our water and sewer system and our convention facilities and some other things, they all act as business enterprises and have to support themselves. The tax-supported portion of our budget, $2.2 billion. As in the past, we have put 2/3 of the budget into public safety. We have restored what we deem the appropriate services back from the downturn when we laid off a significant number of city employees. We are still down about 1,000 people from when I first took office, and we had to make major cuts in the budget. But we have found ways to do what we were doing more effectively and efficiently. We continue to try to use technology to improve the services that we deliver. But in addition to continuing our commitment to public safety, we are also continuing to build the city of Houston, and we are trying to do it in a way that respects all of our regional partners. Now, Houston lops into 3 counties, but we are primarily in Harris County, and I want you had to listen to me give the same speech yesterday. God love you. I'm proud of the relationship we have with Harris County. It is getting better every day. One of the recent examples of the good work we are doing is that we are working to improve the issue of homelessness in the city of Houston. And the city is working with Houston Housing Authority and the Harris County Housing Authority. Good things are happening at our airports. We just started a new nonstop flight, Houston to Istanbul on Turkish Air. Started April 1st. Next month we will have a new nonstop flight, Houston to Beijing on Air China. Stay alert for more announcements on what's happening out at Bush Intercontinental Airport, but also we are moving forward at Hobby Airport. Southwest has picked their construction management team and are proceeding. So soon you'll see new construction at both airports, and we will be one of the cities in the United States with 2 international airports, and we're very excited about that. Pause and see if anybody has any questions. Thank you. Yes?
Does ball moss kill trees?
Ball moss is an epiphyte, not a parasite, and but it is a sign that the tree is stressed, and the best way to remove it is by hand. There you go. Yes, sir.
I noticed that the light rail seems to be springing up around the city. Is there any plans sitting out for us to live?
Springing up around the city is not the phrase I would use. It's taken us a hell of a long time to get there. But there are three lines under construction to augment the first central line, one going north. It will eventually get to Intercontinental Airport. There are 2 lines, one going east and one southeast. One of those lines will eventually get to Hobby Airport. I can't tell you when that's going to happen. It's going to be a while before we get out of here. But Metro continues to provide excellent service in Park and Ride. And you might be interested to know that Metro is doing a blank sheet of paper exercise. One of the things that they've done over the years is the bus routes were where the bus routes were. And new administrations in Metro would come in and the bus routes were where the bus routes were. Now they're completely starting from a blank piece of paper and saying, where would we want buses to go? The challenge for us is that we don't have just one downtown. Actually, I hear folks come to Houston and they know how Houston's 4th largest city in the United States, huge metropolitan area. I said downtown bigger. That's because Houston has 5 downtowns. Medical Center is a downtown with skyscrapers and a significant population. The Energy Corridor, West Chase, the Greens Point area, multiple downtowns. And our bus system was designed at an earlier time, and everything came into downtown. So if you wanted to go across town, you had to come in and go back out again. Metro is now seeing if they can design a system that provides an opportunity for point-to-point to the major commercial centers of our region. And I'm excited about that. And then this, of course, working with Uptown as a partner, and that tax increment reinvestment zone with this new bus rapid transit, it would actually be operated by Metro. Sorry.
Mayor, you mentioned working with homeless. The Michael Beatty Veterans Hospital has a great program for veterans who are homeless. Is the city working with the Beatty Hospital on that program?
We're working with all the entities that deal with veterans, and actually, I started more than a year ago when I took office for the second time in January of 2012. I announced in my inaugural speech that homelessness was going to be one of my priorities. Homelessness is down in Houston by more than 25%. Great. We started with veterans. The reason being that there are a lot more resources for veterans. One of the challenges, though, is that it's surprising. We have one of the largest veterans populations in the United States, in the greater Houston area, but we're not a big base presence. Now, part of the reason they're here is that we have a wonderful VA hospital, but it's also Texas sends more men and women into the military than any other state, and they like to come back home. But the Veterans Hospital, or all of the VA resources here, hadn't really been focused on housing. They had been focused on the healthcare aspects. And so the National VA offered a challenge last year. It was called Housing America's Heroes, and we called it ours Housing Houston's Heroes. And they said, we want cities to go out and try to house 100 chronically homeless veterans in 100 days. Only 3 cities took the challenge. We actually did it, and it taught us what we needed to do. And what happened was Harris County Hospital, the hospital district, the housing authority, both housing authorities, the City of Houston's housing department, the VA worked together to get them into housing. We are now, and we kept going, so we got the second 100. We think we can house 300 more homeless veterans within the next 80 days. And we're doing that because partially because we convinced the local VA to request housing money from the feds that they've never requested before. There's a long answer to your question. Yes, we are working with them, but it's really exciting what we're doing. But I'm talking about it because we believe we're gonna set a new national standard for moving homeless into housing, and we're starting with our veterans. It's a very exciting process. In fact, there's a formerly homeless veteran that we took off the street last year who I announced at my State of the City speech a couple of weeks ago. He is now, we got him into housing, we got him stabilized, and now he's operating his own mechanic shop. He opened his own business out in Veterans Memorial area. So it's not just about getting them out, it's getting them back to work. And another long-term issue that we're going to watch is that most of these veterans that are on the streets that are chronically homeless were Vietnam-era veterans. We have a lot of veterans coming home today, and we want to make sure that we get our arms around them and we don't allow them to slip off the right path. Sir?
Other California cities have taken bankruptcy like we do the public pension funds. I understand this is a big issue for
The pension issue is one I'm trying to address. We have 3 city pensions, police, fire, and municipal. And they're all in different states or stages. My big concern is that my fire pension is completely under the control of the state of Texas. I tried last legislative session and I tried this legislative session to get the ability to negotiate with my fire pension. They've not got any traction. Closest I've come is that Representative Jim Murphy filed a bill that wouldn't allow the city and the taxpayers down here to control that pension. But he did file a bill that would apply statewide that would address some of the most egregious pension abuses. And we are hoping that that passes. And then the state comptroller, in fact, I was just on the phone with her, the state comptroller has a bill on pension transparency, so we can at least get the data we need to make the arguments that we have to. But we are, pension issue, it's a 30-year into the future problem. It's not like you don't have to deal with it 30 years from now, but it's spread out over the next 30 years. And so it's like having a chronic illness. It's not going to kill us tomorrow, but if we don't stop smoking or if we don't lose weight, it's going to eventually get us. That's what the pension issue is like. Cities are service organizations. Almost 75% of what we spend in the city's general fund budget is salaries and overhead. And all the cities are the same. And when I say salaries and overhead, it's that pension and health benefits. And so when you spend $300 million a year on health benefits and another several $100 million a year on pension, that's a big chunk out of a $2.2 billion budget. So it's a big piece that you can't put back into the community doing the services you want to do. Yes, sir?
Hurricane Ike was 5 years ago, and the tendency now is we've had beautiful weather, it's time to relax, it's not going to happen again. How have you learned now 5 years later, and are we more ready? Because when we get our hurricane season, we had the constant flow and all the things, and if we get hit pretty hard, do we have the resources to rebuild, or maybe a little bit faster than New Orleans had to do?
Ike was a devastating storm for this area, and we're still working to recover from Ike. I'll give you a couple of different answers to your question. On the professional side of this, we know what to do. We prepare. June 1st, I'll stand up with the county judge, and we'll have a press conference to remind everybody that it's hurricane season and what to do. We practice, we model, we all know what the communication pattern is. There have been some lessons learned, not since Ike was actually, we executed pretty well, but since Rita. Rita was when the contraflow issue first came up, and the system actually worked fairly well with Ike. From a government standpoint, what we have to make sure to do is to articulate clearly, very clearly what we want. And that message has been honed in this area that we know and can tell people, you're in this zip code, you're in this neighborhood, you need to evacuate, and you need to evacuate on this day. And for most of my constituents, stay home and stay off the road. And just keep driving that message home so that we have the ability to move the people who are on the coast and need to get out of the way. Some of the things that we learned from Ike, though, or one of the things we learned from Ike, is that there really has to be one voice that is the final arbiter. And in the counties, it is the county judge. A little hard for mayors to accept sometimes, but it is the county judge. And we would, in terms of where pods are distributed and so forth. Each of us as cities, we're responsible for our own emergency response and our recovery, but for allocation of state and federal resources, we have tightened up the plan there. And for evacuations, we have gamed it out. We know which gas stations would be open. We pre-stage tanker trucks so they can be refilled. We know what critical areas have to have power brought up in a hurry. For the city of Houston, one of the things that almost happened in I can talk about this now. We had never modeled a scenario with a complete grid failure so that all of the power to all of our water stations went down. That's actually what happened in Galveston. Everything went down and it took them a long time to get the water back up. Fortunately, we were able at the last minute to get some generators to keep just a minimum pressure in our water system. Now we have mobile generators on hand and we pre-positioned them. So we learned from every storm what to do to make it better before the next one. And I'll just digress for a moment and talk about, there are a lot of discussions out there about an Ike dike and different locations for an Ike dike. That is a regional debate or discussion that we would like very much to be a part of. We're going to have to figure out a way to protect our vulnerable coastline better. Yes, sir.
Educationally, what are we doing to close that vocational gap we kind of lost the last generations of skilled trades?
What are we doing to close the vocational gap? I'm meeting regularly with our building trades folks, meeting regularly with the community colleges in this area. We all know what the problem is, and we have the training available to those who want it. The problem right now is that we have to convince young people that they want these kind of careers. And it's going to sound like heresy, but we've been talking so long about how everybody has to go to college and be on the college track that we have convinced a lot of our young people that it's not good enough to be a welder or a pipe fitter or have a good job at good wages at one of our refineries. And so we have a whole other group of young people who are getting behind. They come into school behind and they never catch up, and we're letting them drop out, and they don't have the skills or the training to take those jobs, and they can take just about anything. And so we have two separate problems. And so we are beginning as a community to have a dialogue about, and in fact you saw it happen at the state level as well. Let's provide more options for the kids who stay in school, and we are going to aggressively work through internship, mentorship, educational discussions, convince kids that there are tremendous opportunities for long-term job growth in the basic industries here in the city of Houston or the greater Houston area, and that they need to take a look at it. And then the issue of our undereducated dropouts, I don't have an answer to that one, but we are as a community, having a lot of conversations about who can do what to make that better. Sir?
Mayor, as a community that is heavily involved in government support services, either directly or tangentially, I was curious your comments on, with 80-some% of your budget devoted to personnel and all fringe benefits associated.
75%, but close enough.
Okay, close.
Close enough for the government, right?
What's been your experience on how much city government is in-house versus how much you outsource and get competitions from the outside, and how has that gone for you, and where do you see trends going to stay within your budget area?
I hope everybody heard the question. That's a really good question. We have one department that is very heavily privatized, and that's our solid waste department. We are, in fact, the solid waste capital of America. I don't know if y'all know, but many of the solid waste companies are headquartered in Houston, so it's a competitive market. We periodically have bid out our solid waste collections, and the way we do it is that we set a price that we can do it for, and if they can beat our price, they get the work. And so many areas of the city of Houston have private trash collection. We have, in my term as mayor, we have privatized the convention facility, operation of our convention facilities. We created something called the Houston First Corporation, a local government corporation, and moved and then gave them a management contract for our convention facilities, and they can operate much more nimbly and more like the private sector. So that was a privatization effort. And then we privatized, or in the process of privatizing the City of Houston's crime lab, not necessarily for efficiencies or cost savings, but for the provision of justice. We have had a problem crime lab for decades, and this is allowing us, actually, I hope it allows us ultimately to have a combined city-county forensic facility. So we're always interested in a way to do it better. And then a final question. We're going through a process this year. Two things are different about this year's budget. One is that I created a line item for maintenance and repair. We did a complete assessment of all of our city facilities, which we've never done before. We have more than 400 buildings that the city of Houston owns. And you can actually go on the city's website and see, I know if there's a fire extinguisher missing or a loose stair rail. And but the way the city has operated in the past is we did a bond election, we got money, we went and built something or rebuilt something, and then we let it run down. And then we go out and we get more bond money and we fix it and we let it run down. We did our fleet the same way. I'm determined not to let that happen, and so we've created a line item in the budget. Right now, we're putting 2% aside of our capital budget, and to be spent on regular upkeep of our facilities. And although we're actually having to go with this last bond election and fix a lot of things from before, we're also train just jumped the track here. Oh, I was talking about what else is in the budget this year. That's going to be a good thing for the city. The other is we are doing, with supplemental budget requests from the departments, I am putting them through a management review process. We started it last year where council members allowed me to set some money aside to bring in outside firms to do in-depth efficiency and evaluations of various departments. At the same time, we built up our own in-house capabilities, Lean Six Sigma and so forth, and we're going to do a combination of outside consultants and inside sort of an inspector general corps to, before I raise any department's budget over necessity, they have to go through an evaluation of whether they are operating as efficiently as they should.
We'll do one last question.
Well, it's an easy one because it's not exactly a question, but Mayor, I wanted to thank you for the work that you did with our community to bring the shuttle carrier here where it belongs in Houston, the Space Center Houston, and let you know that we're taking the banner of space leadership along with 25 other states to Washington, D.C. next week through BAHEP with Citizens for Space, and we're going to carry that banner high and proud on behalf of human space flight. We'll continue to do that, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you. I love the space program. I'll do everything I can to support the space program. And as a destination amenity, Space Center Houston is incredibly important to the region, and there's a major capital campaign going on to spiff up that as well. And then regrets to Galveston. The Lone Star Flight Museum will be coming up to Ellington Airport soon, and that will again help enhance the tourist destination facilities in this area, and I'm very excited about the possibilities. And as we try to excite young people about STEM education, there's nothing better than to see something that has been in space or to be inspired by the space program. Thanks for taking the time to come and visit with me this afternoon. We live in a great city, in a great region, in a great state. We need to appreciate that and resolve to go out and work harder to make it even better. Thank you.
Thank everybody for being here and remind everybody that we have another general member meeting on June 5th where we're going to have a roundtable with 7 of our state legislators. So really a fantastic program on June 5th. So thank you everybody.